host, Samantha Stone. And as always, we have a ton going on in the city. I'm really excited to catch up with our mayor and also two candidates for election. And coming up, we're nearing election day. Super exciting time. Welcome, Scott.
Hi, Samantha.
I am super excited because Halloween parade is this coming weekend. So we'll start seeing chairs out on the street soon, right?
So that Friday, probably, yeah.
My husband and I were talking about that. He came home from work a few minutes ago and he said, I said, oh, the parade's this Sunday, don't forget. And he's like, when are you going to make me drag the chairs out? And I said, sooner than you want, but I have spent over 20 years curating a specific spot and I don't want to lose my tradition. So
yeah, most people do the same as you, so you're not alone. It's always
it's
it
great.
fills up pretty quickly.
And I know last time I spoke to Rob Toro, we had said that about 70% of the funds raised that were needed, and they were still collecting funds and sponsor and things. I don't know if you have any idea where things are at now.
No, I think they keep that tight to the, they meet their goals because they're aggressive, and people generally give at the end too.
Yeah, well, I'm excited for it. I can't wait. Hopefully the weather will cooperate, but we've been out there in snow, rain, sun, right?
Yeah, I think they're ready to go.
I love it. That's awesome. This week, and we've mentioned this in the past, one of the fire stations is up for auction coming up this week. And, the average resident is not bidding on this firehouse, but I actually don't know how these things work. So I thought maybe you could just educate us a little bit about how the auction works. And, is there a specific minimum beginning bid and kind of just how all this will come together and what we're hoping to raise?
Yeah, so we have two fire stations that have been closed. It's the North Woburn one and the Central Square one, and we're hoping to auction them both at the same time because the auctioneers and we had thought there'd be more interest and it'd be great to have them both at the same time, which is generally what we were trying to do. City Council is holding on to Central Square. I'm not quite sure why, but we've got the North Woburn one going out on Wednesday. We've had two walkthroughs on two different dates, and the interest has been incredible. So we're hoping based on that, we'll get some healthy competition for the station. And you have to do it, like I said, under procurement laws. We have set a minimum of 490,000. We're hoping it goes much higher than that, but again,
that would be a good deal for anybody.
Oh yeah. I mean, you can see what some of the commercial buildings around here are going for. I know there was one, the old Bayberry went for close to $1 million. So, I know different style buildings, but this one up in North Woburn is in great, I say in great condition. It's certainly dated in the living conditions, but the bay is really turnkey for a contractor or anybody else who would be interested. So we're anticipating a good turnout on Wednesday, and we're hoping that the City Council releases the other one soon so we can put that up for auction as well, because nothing good happens to idle buildings. But to follow up on that, I know just to let you know, the Plimpton demo started today, and they should be done by the middle of the week, and that's going to be nice for the neighbors down there, and it'll be a nice little piece of open space / park, passive recreation.
Isn't it amazing how fast a building comes down, right? It takes so long to put them up. They come down like nothing.
Yeah, I was going to say on your way home, but you are home, but you drive by and it's probably, there's a lot more work to do, but the shell of the building is just about down.
Yeah, I took a walk by, not today, the other day, but even just some of the prep work, you can already see the progress. So that was
so it's great. Exciting.
Yeah, that's excellent. And I know that this has been covered in broader press, but we haven't really talked about the meeting you had with Homeland Security to talk about support for refugee families that are continuing to grow in the community. And I just wanted to not repeat all the stuff that has been covered, but just give you a chance to sort of say, in general, any next steps that you're expecting, anything that you want us to be aware of, to know about. We'll be joined by Representative Haggerty in a couple of weeks to talk about from a state level. But
yeah, so it's always good to keep people informed. The meeting was 2 weeks ago, and it was pretty well covered, by the press. And Chief Rufo and I met out there at the Comfort Inn, and we met with delegation from Homeland Security, and there were some representatives from Governor Healy's office as well. And we talked with Homeland Security about what we're seeing on the ground, and the clear need for more resources, more money for the state and for the city, because there's a lot of the the needs are kind of falling through the cracks and falling on the heels of the volunteers who, doing a great job, but that's not, I don't want to say that's not their job, but they all have other jobs, and they're, I think, going above and beyond, and with the volunteers and getting contributions. And I don't know how long that is going to last, and how long people are going to keep giving to this cause when you see all these other things happening around the world, and suffering and Israel and the Middle East and the Ukraine. So there are always a lot. We've got Christmas coming up, and there are a lot of charitable needs that are going to start competing with these. So that's a major concern. We're trying to tell Homeland Security, and then again, everybody agrees, and we stress it every time we talk to somebody about the dysfunction on the federal level with trying to do some meaningful immigration reform. Particularly, Samantha, when the migrants get here, they can't work for 17, 18 months, which puts everybody behind the 8 ball. And that's something that if Woburn were able to give them working permits, that we'd have it done in a week or less, but it's just, they're not getting together at the federal level, whether it's, a combination of the Republicans and Democrats. They're not meeting to get it done. And that's a real problem. Also, and I've been very outspoken about the right to shelter law, which I think is past its prime, and I've been telling anybody who listens that it needs to be amended. It was passed in a time, a much different time, that was never meant to handle this type of migration that we're seeing. So, and I've talked to Rich about it, and I think he's starting to hear more from his constituents about that there is a problem there, and that law needs to be addressed.
Well, thank you for the update. And I agree with you. Folks will be dependent on services until they can work. And so anything that can help support, doing that is going to be very helpful to everyone. So I know there's things outside of our direct control, but there's lots of opportunities for us as a community to advocate for the things to make sure these families are supported and these children are getting what they need and deserve, and all that goes along with that. I do want to mention one last thing, Scott, before I let you go, which is somewhat related. There is a outerwear winter clothing drive that's being done, and it certainly is being done to help support the refugee families, but really any family in Woburn that needs a winter coat, boots, scarves, hats, gloves, and that's being done, collections through November 4th at North Church. I'm just looking down to get the address. It's on Main Street. I don't have the exact number handy, but wanted to make sure that people know that the collection is happening right now. And anything, if you've got closets to clean out or things that people have outgrown, they're collecting for all sizes, children, adults, male, female, all those things. So it's a great opportunity to make room for some stuff before the holidays hit.
Yeah. And then, we do have the shred event this Saturday. It's 9 to 1, free shred for Woburn residents if they want to get rid of, documents, whether it's tax returns or, any bank statements, whatever they have. It's 9 to 1, and it's usually a pretty busy morning.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. No one can see this because I've strategically placed my camera facing the clean part of my office, but I have a pile of papers that should probably go be shredded, staring at me in the other side of the camera and the monitor. So thanks for bringing that up as well. Thanks for joining me as always.
Yep. Okay. Thanks, Samantha. See you guys. Bye.
Next up, Ellen Crowley. Welcome.
Hello, Samantha. Thank you for having me.
Have you? I think the last time we spoke was many weeks ago. I mean, I've spoken to you since outside of recording, but last time we spoke together on the show was many weeks ago. And at that point in time, I don't think you had decided for sure if you were running for school committee. So we're excited to have you on as a candidate for re-election for the school committee. And I thought we'd start a conversation today, really just talking a little bit about what motivates you. You've been on the school committee through some really challenging times over the last few years, lots of stuff going on. What motivates you to continue to help serve?
When sometimes you have easy years, sometimes you have hard years, but what motivates me to continue to do it is the fact that we got through it. I'm a public servant. I'm dedicated to making kids' lives better in Woburn through the school committee. And to me, there's no question in my mind. This is what I want to do. And I've only been on for 10 years, Samantha. So I still have another 30 years to go.
I love it. I love it. That's awesome. Only 10 years, right? That's
right.
that's
And it's worth mentioning that I am a child of a school committee member who my father reminded me over the weekend that he actually fought for an override to support the school budget in the 90s. So he's like, you have had it rough, but can you imagine supporting a tax increase to support the school budget in the 1990s?
I love the perspective that he's giving.
Yes.
And now your children have a legacy to carry on at some
That's
point
right.
in their future, right?
Yeah. So
Awesome.
yeah, I'm here.
I want to talk about, I want to talk about vulnerable students in a minute, but a community of students that I don't think gets spoken about very often is sort of advanced learners, gifted students who are above average in their learning capabilities. And aside from skipping a grade, we don't have a lot of programs that at least I'm aware of to serve those students. And I think because they're typically strong performers, it becomes less urgent perhaps than other students who need different kinds of support. I know this is probably not top priority, but given your 10 years on the school committee and your experience in working with children in lots of different ways, wanted to get your thoughts on what we can or should be thinking about to serve their unique needs.
So when you hear that the administration of the public schools talk about tiered learning, what we're actually talking about is differentiated instruction. And so if you are a student and you are receiving tier 1 supports, then you are meeting or exceeding the guidelines in the curriculum. So if we are truly differentiated instruction and we have the data to support where learners are at any given time, which is the goal of public schools, then we can deliver instruction to the pace in which the student is achieving. And I think the other important piece to this question, which by the way, I loved the fact that you asked this, because I do think there is an overemphasis on children needing support. There definitely is, because that's where the funding is, that's where the resources are. So often the school committee is our lens is shifted in this way. So this is a really important question. AP classes. So, the school committee has historically supported a diverse amount of courses at the high school. And I do think that we have some very exciting courses. Every year we get the program of studies, and you're right, we don't really delve into it as much as we should. And I think it's really important because the high school is coming up with some amazing courses. I know for a fact that they have forensics and they have a robust science and math curriculum that is really exciting. And extracurricular activities. We want to, if you are a learner and you're high achieving, then we certainly want to have enrichment opportunities available at the middle school, elementary school, of course, and the high school, so that we can support that intellectual curiosity. But I would be remiss if I didn't say that all learners are gifted, and our students in substantially separate programs are, constantly giving gifts to the world, and they are diverse learners, and they have the capacity to change the world as much as a high performer does in an AP calculus class.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think that oftentimes there would be someone who performs really well in one subject and maybe not as well in another subject area. And one of the challenges, even in the special education program, I know from one of my own children's experience, was it was a balancing act, right? They did need help and support in certain types of things, but they were pretty advanced in others. And the classroom that they were in for some of those subjects didn't always reflect the advanced portion of what they were doing. And so it's the struggle with any classroom and any setup that we have, which is to meet the individual students' needs in a particular subject, not product, in any particular program. So I don't want to go down a curriculum discussion because that's not really what the school committee does. But when you talk about differentiated learning, how close to the ideal of that do you feel we are today? And in terms of, how well we're meeting that clear overall objective always is to meet every student's needs and help serve them.
I think that it's a, I would say it's going very well. I would say that the win block, for instance, inventing the win block and using data to make sure that we understand where learners are, and then grouping them with learners that have similar skill sets. I think that is a very important initiative that the Woburn Public Schools has taken on. I don't know the actual, I would need to have a real conversation with administration saying, how are we doing in terms of meeting our goals in this area? But I can say that through our literacy plan, you can definitely see that we have challenges that we can meet, and there is definitely room to grow in this area. I think that it is the absolute priority of the Woburn Public Schools to create areas where we can collect data, we can analyze the data, and then we can use the data in order to inform instruction.
One of the things that you talked about in the forum that CPAC ran, which I think was a great opportunity to get to know a lot of the candidates and refamiliarize ourselves with some who've been with us for a while, like yourself. You talked about vulnerable students, and you talked about your work as a lawyer and what you do and the advocacy that you do in your day-to-day job outside the school committee. So I think you have a particularly important lens at looking at what challenges and opportunities we have moving forward. So as you look at the next term, what are some of the most important things that you think we need to be doing to address those vulnerable students and making sure that we're the best we can be?
I mean, I think there's two areas. The first area is really addressing the learning gaps that we have learning gaps anyways between vulnerable students made vulnerable, and the students that don't have particular vulnerabilities. So we always have those learning gaps anyways, which was exacerbated during COVID-19, where we had school closures. And I think things got the division was made worse. And then we have socioeconomic pressures placed on certain students. So I think going forward, it's important that we have the right staffing. We maintain good class sizes, and we have to maintain good class sizes, but we should strive to make them even smaller. We need to make sure we keep the same level of support staff. Every building has a school adjustment counselor, that is a given, but we need to make sure, we need to look at caseloads to make sure that our school adjustment counselors are not taking care of too many students. We need to continue to build our in-district programming under the special education line item, and making sure that, and I want to start looking at caseloads of related service providers as well, because I think that's an area of growth and challenge. And of course, we just need to embed social emotional learning in all facets, in all academic subjects. If you're learning math, it's also a good opportunity to learn cooperative play skills, right? It's a good opportunity to build your confidence and your empathy in all areas. And so I think it's really, really exciting stuff happening. But I do think that we have great opportunities to learn from the newcomers to our school district and help them guide us to what we need for the school system going forward.
One of the things that we all know that is staring us down is that the ESSER funds are going to be going away in our next budget cycle. What are we doing, or should we be doing, to plan for what is likely an inevitable situation, because they're funding important roles? Some of the kinds of things you've talked about are funded by the ESSER funds. So how do we prepare for that and make sure we're in a strong position to support those positions moving forward?
So I have this theory that the more we sell the vision of the Woburn Public Schools and we get buy-in from the people in the community, and they understand where we're going in the next 3 to 5 years, then there's no reason why we wouldn't have investment into the Woburn Public Schools. So if we all share the idea that literacy is the #1 important piece of learning, then of course, if we need $1 million to keep the reading specialists, then we should be able to have that conversation. It's really about having instead of reacting to budget issues, like, oh no, we're going to lose this funding. We did ask for it. We have been planting the seed that this is coming for a long time. And I think the public also needs to be reassured that the administration always looks to see what areas we can reallocate during things like this in order to maintain the priorities of the Woburn Public Schools without hurting the system. And I think people remember that last budget cycle, which I don't like to talk about because it was very painful. But if someone looks at the budget, they can see that adjustments made to the budget prior to even reaching our desk was a multi-layered analysis on how to reduce the harm to children. Always. We don't just send out pink slips to like 20 teachers and say, you know, that's it. No, we look at it as a system, and the administration works so hard in order to come up with ways in which we can run the school system. So to answer your question, we need the whole community to understand that we are losing our ESSER money and understand why, and be fully transparent so everyone understands what the effects on that is. But on the other hand, need to understand that we might need that money to roll into our regular budget in order to move the district forward. It's a two-part analysis.
I appreciate that, and I appreciate you coming on as always. I'm so grateful to all the candidates for joining me. Anything else you'd like voters to know?
Well, I first just want to say, Samantha, that I admire your strength and courage because you're still doing this even when you may not be feeling well. And I just admire you so much. So,
well, that's very kind of you. Thank you for that. I have to say it is actually giving me something to look forward to and to do that's not medical. So it has been as important for me and helpful for me as hopefully it is for others as well.
So that's the most important thing I want to say in this whole interview. But secondly is, I think what people have maybe even realized with with a lot of difficulty is that I'm a person that will I will do my job through very challenging times. I will represent the school district. I will do what I have to do. And I'm here even when things are hard. So I'm not the type of school committee member that hides away when things are difficult. I will get in there and I will do the job, and I will advocate for kids. And I'm a force to be reckoned with. So that's all I want people to know. And I am, as always, 100% dedicated to the Woburn Public Schools and the community of Woburn.
Thank you so much for joining me, Ellen.
Thank you.
Up was Jeff Dillon. Welcome, Jeff.
Hey, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well today. The sun was out a bit. I got a little fresh air. That always makes me feel good.
It's a beautiful day. First off, I'd just like to thank you for all your work you do in Woburn Public Media, of course, for having this platform so we can get our message out to the city. Thank you.
Well, you know what? I'm so fortunate, and I do the easy part. I just come on and talk. All the hard work happens behind the scenes. So super grateful to have a resource like this in our community. But it only happens when folks like you just agree to come on. So I think back on the almost 4 years that we've been doing this, and it amazes me that we've been able to share so much with the community, and we'll continue to do it as long as people want to watch.
Well, I remember the first time I stayed up all night with nerves the night before. This time I only stayed up half the night.
This is easy. You're great. And Jeff is a little bit of a saint. Jeff is actually my city council representation, and I'm in Ward 3, and I'm thrilled that you're here. But also because I mostly communicate in Facebook message to him, despite that is not his favorite communication channel. I'm always grateful how responsive he is to me and always agrees to come on and chat. Before we do anything else, Jeff, I want to celebrate Plimpton School coming down.
Yes.
And it is, Scott had mentioned it earlier, sort of celebrating. Things come down a lot faster than they go up. So it's great over a couple of days to see how much progress was there. But this was many years in the making. This has been something that has been on the to-do list and even had money put aside to do for a very long time. And I don't want to dismiss the role I think that you played in making this actually finally happen. And I wanted to just sort of give you a chance to talk about the community and things that came together to actually finally see the day that those bricks are being piled up and ready to be taken away.
Yeah, well, it is an exciting day. I went by there this morning and they were all staged and starting a demo. And then when I went by about 2:30 or so, believe it or not, three-quarters of it was down. But the real heroes and the real hard workers here, Samantha, have been the neighbors. They really have rallied together, set up a website, got the message out, and at every public meeting where there was any talk of parks, they made sure that the Plimpton School got noted. And they worked as a group. They worked hard. And I'm really proud of seeing how when a group of people band together, they can get the message across. And I would be amiss if I also didn't thank my the guy in front of me who was city councilor in Ward 3 so many years, Mark Gaffney. He worked in order to get it to the stage where, you know, it was declared open space and that it would be demolished eventually. So he indeed is part of this process and deserves thanks too. All I did was follow my constituents' direction and advocated for them. But again, the real heroes here are the neighbors who work together. And I just look forward to, now that we have it down and moving along, I look forward to getting that end result, which with a couple of meetings, and there's more meetings to come, we're going to have some green space, couple benches, and a place for people to sit and reflect. And can never have too much green space, as we all know.
It's always lovely to have little spaces to take a break in across the city. We're lucky to have that. I wanted to talk a little bit about something, talk about fire stations for a moment. So a couple weeks ago, the mayor and I were talking about the fire stations that are closed that we are auctioning off. And he mentioned that he had hoped that both fire stations would be auctioned at the same time, but that there was really some holdup with city council and developers. And he encouraged me to have guests on to talk more about the second fire station and what's happening there. So Jeff, I can always count on you to give me an open and transparent point of view about what's happening, and would love to get your perspective on that second fire station and what's, you know, where things are at with that and what we're hoping to look at and learn more about.
Sure. Well, first off, I did see the interview, and I guess I will candidly say I'm somewhat disappointed in Mayor Galvin's term held up. I would say city council, if anyone held it up, it was me. What I wanted to have happen is pretty much what did eventually happen. It went to committee, it was talked about. It is still in committee now. And during committee, we had a couple abutters. We had one abutter show up and another one send us a correspondence. The abutter who showed up was Mr. Tachi from the Tachi Group, who owns the land in the building behind. There's no secret he has strong interest in the fire station. But like anybody else, he has to do his due diligence and follow the program that the city has set up for any property that's being disposed of. The other butter we heard from was the Woburn Boys and Girls Club. Their only access to the club is through an easement. So they wanted us to check into to see if there's anything that could be done, restructured. So we asked the city engineer to look at that, and he did a study on it, as well as for the intersection out front, safety. There was also a crash study done on it, which is basically what I wanted it to do. I wanted it to go through full vetting so that everyone had a say on it that had any interest in it. At this point, I feel as though it probably should come out of committee, and I'll make that recommendation to Councilor Gately, who's in charge of public lands. And I will suggest, let's get it into a public hearing, get it again heard in case anybody else has anything to say about it. And then if it's willing of the will of the council, the will of the neighbors and the abutters, if they want to see it put to Mayor Galvin so he can convey it to some other property owner, that's great. But again, what turned out for me just wanting to go through the process and make sure everyone was aware was going on there and make sure the neighbors and the abutters, it became a bit of a situation, shall we say. But I'm hoping now we're on the right track, and for the betterment of the city, I'm more than happy to continue the process and work right through to the end result.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that with us. And, I, for one, we're not talking a particularly long day. We're not talking about like the Plimpton school that's been, more than a decade of waiting. I think doing our due diligence of a couple of weeks makes sense. And making sure that everybody has an opportunity to be heard. It is an important, piece of property, and we want to maximize its value to the community. So thanks for doing it. Sounds like we're on track and things are going to keep moving forward.
No, absolutely. And again, I think the firemen, firefighters haven't even been out of there for 6 months. So as far as city government terms, this has been going in the proper channels. And again, in my humble opinion, not held up at all. But thank you for that question.
Yeah, thank you. City council is a job that on the surface sounds like it shouldn't take a lot of time, but it takes an enormous amount of time. And it's very interrupt driven, where residents reach out when things are happening and they care about things. And that happens every day of the week and all times of the day. And I know how responsive you are. And it's a lot. What do you find most rewarding about the role? Because we know it is a pretty intense commitment to our city.
Sure. Constituent services, I think, is, if not the most important role we play, one of the most important roles we play. We have important things in chambers. I get it, but we are hired, for lack of a better term, or voted, if you want to say that, to look after the citizens of Woburn. And not only do we look after our own wards, but every vote we take affects the whole city. So it's a great responsibility. And I feel as though taking care of the constituents in their concerns is number one what we should do. Return calls quickly. Try to get to an end result. Now, sometimes a simple, my trash didn't get picked up, I would like a go slow, slow down the traffic sign for my children at play. These all seem like simple requests, but believe it or not, sometimes it's not an easy deal to get to. So it takes time. The citizens that I've worked with have been great. I always, my probably most rewarding citizen constituent problem was we had a power outage, and I got a call a little bit late into the evening, and it was a gentleman who just recently home with his sick son, and it was important they had power for his medical needs. And he called me, and at first glimpse of the situation, I said, I'm going to try to help you, but I'm not sure. I sat down, I grabbed my laptop, and I kind of collected myself, and I was able to make some phone calls to the proper people. So they had the number to N-Star that I didn't have, to get the people out there and put them on the top of the list and square their family away. That's the kind of services I think that we need to do and listen one-on-one to our constituents and make sure they're heard. Because sometimes government process, shall we say, is even complicated for those of us who are in it. So for the typical citizen, I get it. And that's why we should respond and be as helpful as we can.
Well, thank you for doing that. I mean, in the moment of what can be a real emergency, a medical emergency for your child, there's sort of nothing worse than not knowing what to do and feeling very helpless. So just being able to contact you and have you go behind the scenes and try and get to all the right people, it sounds took a big burden off their shoulders, and I'm sure is really, really appreciated. So that was a great example. Thank you for sharing that with us.
It's my pleasure.
As you look at Ward 3 overall and the next term coming up, what are some of the opportunities that you want to focus on that you think we have the great chance? Aside from, obviously, we're going to always continue to help those in emergency situations. There'll be all kinds of, day-to-day things that come across. But what are some of the bigger things that you hope we're able to address?
Sure. I'll start out with I think we're heading into a time where we really have to look at a delicate balance between development and traffic and just the citizens being able to live their life as happily as they can in the city without being crowded out. We need to continue to have smart development, and that's a phrase that's used way too often. But it is a delicate balance. We have seniors, we have people on a fixed income, we have people that live paycheck to paycheck. We need to be conscious of that. We have educational needs. We need to be conscious of that. So it's a big puzzle that starts here in Ward 3 and goes throughout the city. So again, we will put thinking caps on, work hard in city chambers. I'm excited about a couple things before I get to Ward 3 that may be coming down the pike. One is Tesla coming up on Washington Street. They're showing some interest on the side up there. I just think that's a big blue ribbon for the city to get them there. And it looks like a low-packed use for the most part. And those are the kind of things, in my opinion, we need to encourage so we don't have a big tax hike, so we don't have to cut drastically in any of our public safety or educational needs. As far as Ward 3, I'm really excited about, as we mentioned earlier, the Plimpton School. Just so glad to see it down. As I mentioned, the neighbors are champions in their efforts. They're to be commended. They work so hard. I'm glad for them. And I look forward to getting at exactly what they want and move forward. And then we have a little further down, coming down Wynn Street, we have the Hurl Park coming along. We have funds coming in. We're beyond the planning stage and now getting to permitting stage. And again, we talk about things take time. This is something that's I'd like to see happen quicker, but I understand all the moving parts to it. So those are two big things in Ward 3 that are coming quickly. And just continue to look out for my constituents. This is where I grew up. This is where I will remain. This is where my family is. And I feel very strongly for it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jeff. I really appreciate it. I feel fortunate to have you got our backs and to live in Ward 3 myself. I've been here a long time and I love seeing some new green space right here near and in our ward. So we have an opportunity to improve and continue to find new ways to bring the community together and have these spaces of shared interest. So thank you for supporting all of us and appreciate it. Before I let you go, anything else you'd like voters to know?
Well, I think the voters know enough about me. What I want to do is thank you, Samantha. You certainly are an inspiration to me, to the whole city of Woburn. Your strength, your courage, you just keep going on. I know it's not been an easy battle, but I want to let you know from the community, from my family, we care greatly for you, and we know you're doing great. We love you.
Oh, thank you guys are all gonna make me cry. Really, I'm so fortunate, and I mean this with all sincerity. Doing this show every week, I wasn't sure when I started chemo I'd be able to do it. But I turned out that even on the days that I didn't feel like it was like the thing I look forward to, and it was a break from feeling sorry for myself. And so I'm so grateful because the show doesn't happen without guests like yourself coming on board. So thank you so much for your kind words. And Woburn, as always, please continue to take good care of each other. And I hope to see many people at the Halloween parade enjoying this lovely, unique tradition that we have in our city.